Taemin's hands shook as he watched another Volani colony ship explode on his screen. The beautiful blue flames that marked his people's final moments lit up the darkness of space. He was the last commander left in this sector, and his small, research ship was all that remained of the once great Volani Empire. The Krex Dominion had been hunting his people for 3 years now. They moved from system to system like hungry beasts, destroying everything in their path. The Volani had tried to run, tried to hide, tried to fight. Nothing worked. The Krex were too strong, too cruel, and too many. "Commander, we have maybe 6 hours before they find us," said his young officer Ji-Hai. Her voice was calm, but Taemin could see the fear in her eyes. She was barely 25, too young to die like this. Taemin looked at his communication console. There was one last chance. The emergency beacon system could send a distress call across the galaxy. Maybe someone out there would help them. Maybe someone would care that an entire race was about to disappear forever. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel. The galactic database was old and damaged, but it still had information about other species. He needed to find someone peaceful, someone who might help refugees. His eyes stopped on an entry that made his heart jump with hope. Terran species. Classification: Garden World inhabitants. Threat level: minimal. Notes: peaceful farmers. And researchers. Perfect. These Terrans sounded exactly like what he needed. The database said they lived on a quiet world with green plants and blue water. They grew food and studied nature. Surely such gentle beings would understand the pain of seeing innocent lives destroyed. Taemin quickly programmed the beacon with their coordinates and a message explaining their situation. He tried to make it clear that they were not warriors, just civilians running from a terrible enemy. All they needed was somewhere safe to go, maybe some food and basic supplies. Sending emergency signal to Terran space, he announced to his small crew. If the stories are true, they might help us. The signal shot out into space at faster than light speed, carrying their desperate plea across the stars. Far away in human space, Admiral Hei-Wan was reviewing patrol reports when the communication alarm rang through her ship. The UES Iron Resolve was humanity's newest and most powerful warship. It stretched over a kilometer long and carried enough weapons to turn a small moon into dust. "Admiral, we're getting a distress signal," said Captain Wu Jin from his communication station. "It's alien, but our computers are translating it." Hei-Wan looked up from her reports. In her 40 years of military service, she had never received an alien distress call. Humanity had only recently started exploring beyond their local star. Cluster. Most of the galaxy still did not know they existed. "Put it through," she ordered. The translated message appeared on the main screen. Hei-Wan read it carefully, her face growing more serious with each word. An entire civilization was being destroyed. Billions of innocent beings were dying while their killers moved from world to world like a plague. "Ma'am, should we forward this to Earth Command?" asked Commander Dong-Wook, her second in command. Hei-Wan shook her head. "That will take weeks. These people don't have weeks." She stood up and walked to the tactical display. The signal had come from a system 3 jumps away. They could be there in 18 hours if they pushed the engines hard. "Captain Minho, what do we know about the area?" Minho pulled up star charts and scanned them quickly. 3 inhabited systems, all marked as peaceful in our long-range surveys. No significant military presence detected in our previous scans. Dr. So Young, the ship's alien specialist, looked excited despite the serious situation. "Admiral, this could be first contact with a peaceful species. We should approach carefully and follow all diplomatic protocols." "Diplomatic protocols don't help dead civilians," Hei-Wan said firmly. "These people are calling for help. We answer calls for help. That's what humans do." Commander Dong-Wook looked worried. "Ma'am, we don't know what we're flying into. This could be a trap. Maybe their enemies are stronger than we think." Hei-Wan considered this. The Iron Resolve was powerful, but it was just one ship. If they were flying into a major battle, they might not be able to help anyone. But the message had sounded so desperate, so hopeless. She thought about the colonies and research stations humanity had built among the stars. If something was hunting them, she would want someone to answer their call for help. Set course for the source of the signal, she ordered. Maximum speed, and prepare all weapon systems. Ma'am? Minho looked surprised. I thought we were going on a rescue mission. We are, but we're also going into unknown space to face an enemy that has been destroying entire worlds. We go in ready for anything. The Iron Resolve's massive engines came online with a deep rumble that shook the ship. The crew moved to battle stations, even though they were still hours away from their destination. Heywan knew that her people were nervous. This was their first real mission beyond human space, and they had no idea what they would find. In the ship's science lab, Dr. So Young worked on improving the translation systems. The alien message had been clear enough, but she wanted to make sure they could communicate properly when they arrived. She had studied theoretical alien languages for years, but this was her first chance to work with real data from another species. Captain Wu Jin ran communication drills with his team. They practiced sending messages in different formats and frequencies, hoping to find something that would work with alien technology. He had learned 15 human languages, but alien communication was completely different. Down in engineering, the team pushed the ship's engines to their limits. The Iron Resolve was built for long patrol missions, not emergency response. But Chief Engineer Jae Won and her people knew how to make their ship move fast when lives were on the line. As the hours passed, the crew grew more tense. They were flying toward a situation they did not understand, to help people they had never met, against an enemy they knew nothing about. But not one person suggested turning back. The distress call had been clear. Innocent people were dying, and someone had to help them. Heywan stood on the bridge and watched the stars stream past at faster than light speed. She thought about the message they had received. The aliens had called themselves the Villani. They sounded like a gentle people who had done nothing to deserve what was happening to them. She also thought about the enemy they would probably face. These Kreks sounded brutal and organized. They had been destroying worlds for years, which meant they had powerful ships and weapons. The Iron Resolve might be walking into a fight it could not win. But that did not matter. Someone had called for help, and humans answered calls for help. It was as simple as that. Approaching the target system, announced the navigation officer, dropping to normal space in 30 minutes. Heywan took her position in the command chair. Around her, the bridge crew prepared for whatever they might find. Weapon systems came online with soft electronic sounds. Shield generators hummed to life. Every sensor on the ship focused forward, trying to see what waited for them. Remember, Heywan said to her crew, we're here to help. Whatever we find out there, our job is to protect innocent lives. The countdown reached 0, and the Iron Resolve dropped back into normal space at the edge of the Villani system. What they found there would change everything. Taemin felt hope for the first time in months when his sensors detected a ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel. His distress signal had worked. The peaceful Terran farmers had come to help them, just as he had hoped they would. Jihi, prepare a welcome message, he ordered excitedly. Tell them how grateful we are that they came. Make sure they know we have supplies ready to share and information about safe places to relocate our people. The young officer smiled as she worked on the communication. Around them, the few remaining Villani ships and their small refugee fleet began to move closer together. Everyone wanted to see their rescuers, the kind Garden World people who had traveled across the stars to help them. Contact in 30 seconds, Jihai announced. Their ship should appear on visual any moment now. Taemin adjusted his uniform and prepared to greet their saviors. He had practiced what he would say during the long journey. He would thank them for coming, explain their situation clearly, and ask for guidance to the nearest safe world. These Terrans sounded like wise, peaceful people who would know exactly how to help refugees. Then the Iron Resolve appeared on their screens, and everything changed. The ship was enormous beyond anything Taemin had ever imagined. It stretched across their viewports like a floating city made of metal and weapons. Dark gray armor covered its hull, marked with scars from countless battles. Weapon ports glowed with barely controlled energy, and sensor arrays swept space like the eyes of a hunting predator. By the spirits, whispered Jihi, her face going pale. What is that thing? Taemin stared in horror at the massive warship. This was not a peaceful research vessel or a gentle transport ship. This was a machine built for one purpose, to destroy other ships as efficiently as possible. Every line of its design spoke of violence and death. Sir, their ship is causing interference with our systems, reported another officer. Just being near it is overloading our sensors. The electromagnetic field around the human ship was so strong that Vallani technology could not function properly. Within several thousand kilometers, it was like being too close to a star. Everything they had built was too delicate to handle the raw power radiating from the alien vessel. Incoming transmission, Jihai said, her voice shaking. The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of the alien ship. What Taemin saw made his blood turn cold. The bridge was dark and threatening, lit by red warning lights and filled with displays showing weapon status and target information, and in the center of it all sat a human. Admiral Heywan looked exactly like the terrifying Deathworld predators from old Vallani stories. Her eyes were sharp and calculating, scanning everything like she was deciding what to destroy first. Her uniform was military, marked with symbols that probably meant how many enemies she had killed. Behind her, other humans worked at stations covered in weapons controls. Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Heywan of the United Earth Ship Iron. Resolve. The translation came through in broken, threatening words. We received your transmission. State your current tactical situation and enemy positions. Taemin did not understand half the words the human used. What was a tactical situation? What did enemy positions mean? The translator was struggling, with human language making everything sound like military commands and threats. Weapon systems are hot and ready, Heywan continued. We are prepared for full engagement. Repeat, state locations of hostile forces. The translator made it sound like the humans were preparing to attack. Taemin realized with growing terror that he had made a horrible mistake. These were not peaceful farmers. These were Deathworlders, the most feared warriors in the galaxy. And he had just told them exactly where to find his helpless people. Sir, what do we do? Jihai asked quietly. Taemin tried to think, but panic was taking over his mind. Everyone knew the stories about Deathworlders. They came from harsh planets where everything was trying to kill them, so they became killers themselves. They fought, constantly destroyed anything weaker than them, and conquered whole sectors of space just because they could. And now one of their warships was here, asking for enemy positions. They probably wanted to know where the Krex fleet was so they could work together to finish off the Vallani survivors. Open a channel, Taemin said, his voice barely working. Maybe we can negotiate. The human admiral looked directly at him through the screen, and Taemin felt like a small animal being studied by a hungry predator. Her eyes were cold and calculating, probably deciding if his ship had anything worth taking before they destroyed it. Please, Taemin began. We made a mistake. We thought you were someone else. We're just refugees. We have nothing of value. Our people are not warriors. If you let us go, we won't tell anyone you were here. The translation software turned his desperate plea into something that sounded like battle reports and surrender terms. On the human ship, Admiral Heywan looked confused and concerned. Are you requesting immediate evacuation? The human asked. Do you need medical assistance? We can provide escort to a safe location. But the translator made it sound like she was asking about their weapons and how many ships they had left. To Taemin, it seemed like she was planning the most efficient way to destroy them all. We surrender, Taemin said quickly. Please make it quick, don't hurt the civilians. On the Iron Resolve, Captain Woojin turned to Admiral Heywan with a confused look. Ma'am, I think there's something wrong with our translator. They keep talking about surrender and dying quickly. Are they under attack right now? Dr. So Young worked frantically at her station trying to improve the translation system. The linguistic patterns are very different from what we expected. Their language has no words for military concepts. Everything we say is coming through as threats. Commander. Dongwook studied the alien ships on his tactical display. Admiral, their vessels show no weapon signatures, no shields, no armor. These are civilian craft, probably research and transport ships. Haywan felt a growing sense that something was very wrong with this first contact. The aliens seemed terrified of them, but she could not understand why. Her ship had responded to their distress call exactly as any human vessel would. They were here to help. Try to explain that we're here to assist them, she ordered. Make it clear that we received their call for help. But when Wu Jin tried to send a reassuring message, the translation system turned words like assist and help into military terms that sounded threatening to Villani ears. Everything about human language and culture was built around concepts that did not exist in peaceful Villani society. On the Villani ship, Tai Min watched more human vessels appear on his sensors. Wait, no. Those were just weapon systems activating on the single massive ship. The Iron Resolve carried enough firepower to destroy their entire refugee fleet 100 times over. Sir, they're powering up weapons, Jihai reported in a terrified whisper. Actually, the humans were just running normal system checks, but to the Villani it looked like preparation for an attack. Every routine procedure on the warship seemed designed to intimidate and threaten. All ships, Taemin broadcast, to the refugee fleet, do not run, do not fight. These are Deathworlders. Maybe if we don't resist, they will kill us quickly. His message was intercepted by the human ship, where Dr. So Young finally managed to get a clear translation. She turned to Admiral Haywan with shock on her face. Ma'am, they think we're here to kill them. They think we're some kind of monsters. They're preparing to die. Haywan stared at the translation in disbelief. These people had called for help, and now they thought their rescuers were here to murder them. Something had gone very wrong with this first contact. Keep working on the translator, she ordered. We need to make them understand that we're here to help, not hurt them. But the damage was already done. The Villani refugees sat in their ships, waiting for death to come from the massive human warship. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the real enemy was getting closer. War Leader Gorthak smiled as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Villani system. His sensors showed exactly what he expected to find, a small group of helpless refugee ships trying to hide near an asteroid field. The hunt was almost over. For 3 years he had been chasing the last survivors of the Villani Empire across the galaxy. It had been good sport at first, watching them run from system to system like frightened animals. But now Gorthak was tired of the game. His superiors wanted this sector cleared for Krek's expansion, and these final refugees were in the way. Sir, we're detecting 47 Villani vessels, reported his tactical officer. All civilian craft, no weapons detected. This should be easy. Gorthak nodded and prepared to give the order to attack. Then his sensors officer made a sound of confusion. War Leader, there's something else in the system, a single large vessel near the refugee fleet. Another Villani ship? Gorthak asked without much interest. No, sir, the design is unknown. Very large, very heavily armed. It's protecting the refugees. This got Gorthak's attention. He had been tracking these particular Villani survivors for months. They had no allies, no one who would help them. Yet now someone was here, positioning themselves between his fleet and his prey. Show me, he ordered. The main screen displayed the Iron Resolve in all its threatening glory. Gorthak studied the massive warship carefully. The design was unfamiliar, but the weapon signatures were clear enough. This ship could destroy half his fleet before they got close enough to fight back. Do we have this design in our database? He asked. His intelligence officer worked quickly through their records. Yes, sir. This matches reports from our scouts. Near the Terran systems, it's a human vessel. Gorthak felt a chill run through his body. Every Krex commander knew about humans, even though most had never seen them. They were the reason the Krex Dominion had stopped expanding in certain directions. They were the reason some sectors were marked as "Do Not Enter" on Krex star charts. Humans were Deathworlders like the Krex themselves. But while the Krex conquered through numbers and brutal tactics, humans were something else entirely. They were strategic, disciplined, and absolutely ruthless when protecting something they cared about. Worse, they seemed to actually enjoy fighting against impossible odds. Sir, what are your orders? His tactical officer asked. Gorthak considered his options. He had 50 ships in his fleet, all armed and ready for battle. The humans had only one vessel. The smart thing to do would be to withdraw and report this to his superiors. Let someone else decide how to handle human interference, but if he retreated now, his reputation would be ruined. The other war leaders would say he was afraid of a single enemy ship. His career in the Dominion military would be over. Open a channel to the human vessel, he ordered. On the Iron Resolve, Lieutenant Hyun-soo looked up from his communication station with surprise. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown fleet that just appeared in the system. It's not Volani. Admiral Haewon turned her attention from the refugee ships to this new development. Her tactical display showed 50 vessels in attack formation, all heavily armed. These must be the hostiles the refugees were running from. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a Krex warship. Gorthak appeared on screen, his reptilian features marked with ritual scars that showed his rank and battle experience. His uniform was decorated with trophies taken from conquered worlds. Human vessel. Gorthak's voice came through the translator in harsh, commanding tones. I am War Leader Gorthak of the Krex Dominion. You are interfering with a legitimate military operation. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Haewon studied the alien commander carefully. She could see the intelligence in his eyes, the calculated cruelty that came from years of conquest. This was not some mindless beast. This was a professional soldier who had probably destroyed dozens of worlds. This is Admiral Haewon of the United Earthship Iron Resolve, she replied calmly. These vessels are under our protection. Any attack against them will be considered an act of war against humanity. Gorthak laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You have one ship, human. I have 50. Your mathematics are poor. Captain Minho leaned closer to Haewon and whispered, Ma'am, they're right about the numbers. We're significantly outgunned. Haewon nodded but did not show any concern on her face. War Leader Gorthak, these people called for help and we answered. That makes them our responsibility. If you want to fight them, you'll have to go through us first. So be it, Gorthak replied. But know that you die for strangers who mean nothing to you. Why throw away your life for refugees? Because that's what humans do, Haewon said simply. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. The communication channel closed, leaving the Iron Resolve alone with the approaching Krex fleet. The bridge, the crew prepared for battle with the quiet efficiency that marked professional military personnel. Dr. So Young finally managed to establish clear communication with the Volani refugees. Commander Taemin appeared on a secondary screen, his face showing confusion and hope. Human Admiral, he said carefully, why are you protecting us? We thought you were here to destroy us too. We received your distress call, Haewon explained. We came to help. That's what the signal was for, wasn't it? Taemin's eyes widened as understanding dawned. You're not here to hunt us. You're here to save us. That's right. And we're going to do exactly that. On the Volani refugee ships, word spread quickly that the terrifying human warship was actually there to protect them. The massive vessel that had frightened them so badly was now the only thing standing between them and certain death. Commander Dong-wook monitored the Krex fleet's movements. They're moving to attack formation. Looks like they're planning to overwhelm us with numbers. Let them come, Haewon said quietly. Mr. Minho, what's our tactical situation? Minho checked his displays. We have full weapons and shields. All systems are operating at peak efficiency. The refugee fleet is positioned behind us, protected by our defensive field. Engineer Jaewon's voice came over the communication system from the engine room. Admiral, we're ready for combat operations. All systems are green. Pilot Soo-jin tested her controls from the navigation station. Maneuvering systems ready. The ship will do whatever you need it to do. Haewon looked at the tactical display showing 50 enemy ships moving toward her single vessel. By any reasonable calculation, the Iron Resolve was about to be destroyed. But she felt no fear, only determination. All hands, this is the Admiral, she announced over the ship's communication system. We are about to engage a superior enemy force in defense of civilian refugees. This is exactly the kind of situation we trained for. Remember your duty, trust your training, and watch out for each other. On the Villani ships, Timon and his people watched in amazement as the human vessel prepared to face impossible odds. Ji-Hai stared at her sensors in disbelief. Sir, they're really going to fight. 50 ships to protect us. Why would they do such a thing? Timon shook his head slowly. I don't know, but I think we're about to learn what humans are really like. The Krex fleet finished forming their attack formation and began their final approach. War leader Gorthak felt confident despite facing humans. Numbers would win this battle, and 50 ships were more than enough to destroy one enemy vessel, no matter how well armed it was. He had no idea that he was about to witness why humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most feared Deathworlders. The battle began not with the wild charge that Gorthak expected, but with something far more terrifying: calculated precision that turned space itself into a weapon. Captain Minho studied his tactical displays as the Krex fleet approached. 50 ships in a standard attack formation, exactly what their training manuals would recommend for overwhelming a single target. Predictable, exploitable. Admiral, they're coming in tight formation, he reported. Perfect for what we have in mind. Haywan nodded. Execute Plan Shepherd's Watch. The plan had a simple name, but what followed was a demonstration of human military thinking that redefined space warfare. The Iron Resolve did not charge forward to meet the enemy. Instead, it began to dance. Pilot Su-Jin's hands moved across her controls like a musician playing a complex song. The massive warship, over a kilometer long and massing more than a small moon, began to move with impossible grace. It slipped between asteroids, used gravity fields to change direction without using engines, and positioned itself exactly where it needed to be at exactly the right moment. First target group identified, Minho announced. Firing solution ready. The Iron Resolve's main weapons were not the simple energy blasters that most species used. They were devices that violated the laws of physics as the galaxy understood them. When they fired, reality bent around their targets. The first salvo caught a group of Krex ships as they rounded a large asteroid, but instead of hitting them directly, the human weapons created a gravity well that pulled the asteroid apart. Millions of tons of rock became a directed kinetic bombardment that struck the enemy ships with the force of falling moons. War leader Gorthak watched 5 of his vessels disappear in seconds, crushed by debris moving at impossible speeds. What kind of weapons are those? He demanded. His tactical officer stared at his readings in confusion. Sir, they're not just shooting at us. They're using the entire system as a weapon. The gravity fields, the asteroids, even the solar radiation, it's all being turned against us. The Iron Resolve continued its deadly dance, and Captain Minho orchestrated destruction like a conductor leading a symphony of death. Every shot was calculated not just to hit its target, but to create conditions that would make the next shot even more effective. When a group of Krex ships tried to flank them by going around a gas giant, the humans used the planet's magnetic field to redirect their own energy weapons. The beams curved through space in ways that should have been impossible, striking the enemy from angles they could not defend against. Engineer Jaewon's voice came from the engine room, calm despite the chaos around them. Power levels holding steady, we can keep this up all day. What terrified the watching aliens was not just the human weapons, but the way the entire crew worked together. There was no shouting, no panic, no confusion. Every person knew exactly what they needed to do, and they did it with machine-like precision. Dr. So Young, even while monitoring the refugee ships, provided tactical analysis. Enemy formation is breaking apart. Their command structure is collapsing under pressure. Lieutenant Hyun-Soo intercepted enemy communications and provided real-time intelligence. Sir, they're trying to coordinate a massed attack from 3 directions, sending you their approach vectors now. The Iron Resolve responded to this threat by doing something that made the watching Villani question everything they thought they knew about space combat. The ship split its fire, engaging 3 separate enemy formations simultaneously, while continuing to move in patterns that kept it protected from return fire. Pilot Su-Jin guided the massive vessel through maneuvers that should have torn it apart. From the stress, But human engineering was built for exactly this kind of punishment. The ship twisted and spun like a fighter craft while delivering the firepower of a battle station. On the Volani refugee ships, Commander Tae Min and his people watched in amazement as the single human vessel dismantled the Krek's fleet piece by piece. Ji-hai stared at her sensors, trying to understand what she was seeing. "Sir, how are they doing this? One ship against 50 and they're winning." Tae Min shook his head in wonder. "I think we're seeing what real warriors look like, not the Kreks, who just attack with brute force. These humans, they're artists of destruction." The battle reached its climax when war leader Gorthak decided to risk everything on one final attack. He gathered his remaining 30 ships into a tight formation and ordered them to charge straight at the Iron Resolve, accepting heavy losses, in exchange for getting close enough to overwhelm the human vessel. It was exactly what Captain Minho had been waiting for. "All enemy ships in close formation," he reported with grim satisfaction. "Recommend Hammer of Sol protocol." Admiral Hei-Wan considered the request for only a moment. The Hammer of Sol was humanity's most devastating space weapon, something they had hoped never to use. But these Kreks had been hunting innocent refugees for years, destroying entire civilizations. They had earned what was coming. Approved. Fire when ready. The Iron Resolve's main cannon began to charge with power, drawn directly from the ship's fusion reactors. Energy levels climbed to readings that made the surrounding space shimmer with barely contained force. The weapon that emerged was not just a beam of destruction. It was a controlled stellar event, the fury of a star compressed into a weapon. When it fired, the blast carved through space like a sword of light. The Krek ships in its path simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered across the system. The ships beside them were crushed by gravitational waves. The ships behind them were blinded and crippled by electromagnetic pulse. In less than 10 seconds, Gorthak's final attack formation was reduced to floating debris. War leader Gorthak found himself alone on the bridge of his flagship, his crew either dead or unconscious from the shockwaves. His ship was powerless, drifting helplessly while the human vessel approached like a predator moving in for the kill. The communication system flickered to life, showing Admiral Hei-Wan's face. She looked at him with the cold professionalism of someone who had just finished an unpleasant but necessary job. "War leader Gorthak," she said calmly, "you have a choice. Surrender now and face trial for your crimes, or continue fighting and join the rest of your fleet." Gorthak looked around his ruined bridge, then at the tactical display showing the complete destruction of his forces. 50 ships reduced to scrap metal by a single human vessel. It was impossible, but it had happened. "How?" he whispered. "You made the mistake of threatening people we swore to protect," Hei-Wan replied. "That was never going to end well for you." Gorthak reached for the self-destruct controls, preferring death to the shame of surrender. But before he could activate them, his ship's power systems failed completely. The humans had even taken away his choice of how to die. As his flagship was captured by tractor beams and pulled toward the Iron Resolve, Gorthak activated his emergency beacon one final time. His message went out across Krek space and beyond, a warning that would spread throughout the galaxy. "This is War Leader Gorthak to all Krek's forces. Do not engage human vessels. I repeat, do not engage. They are not like us. They are not warriors seeking glory or conquest. They are something far more dangerous. They are guardians who will follow you to the edge of the galaxy itself if you threaten those they protect. My fleet is destroyed. I am captured. Let my failure be a lesson to others." The battle was over, but its effects would reshape the galaxy's understanding of humanity forever. In the quiet that followed the battle, space around the Iron Resolve looked like a graveyard of twisted metal and fading energy clouds. The debris of 50 Krek's warships drifted slowly through the system, silent witnesses to what happened when predators met true protectors. Dr. So-Young worked carefully to establish proper communication with the Volani refugees. The translation problems that had caused so much fear during first contact were finally being solved, word by word and concept by concept. "Commander Tae Min," she said through the clearer communication link. "Can you hear me properly now?" Tae Min's voice came back with wonder and relief. Yes, Dr. So-young, your words are clear. I want to apologize for our reaction when you arrived. We were so frightened. You had every right to be frightened, So-young replied gently. Our ship looks very scary and our first meeting went badly wrong. But we need you to understand. We came here to help you, not hurt you. On the refugee ship, Jihi listened to the conversation with amazement. The human doctor's voice was kind and patient, nothing like the terrifying warriors they had imagined. Sir, she sounds like one of our own teachers. Taemin nodded slowly. The more he talked with the humans, the more he realized how badly he had misunderstood them. Dr. So-young, why did you come so far to help strangers? Your people don't even know us. So-young was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain. On our world, we have a saying. No one is truly alone as long as someone will answer their call for help. When we heard your distress signal, we couldn't ignore it. That's just who we are. Chief Medical Officer Yoonji joined the conversation from the Iron Resolve's medical bay, where she was preparing to treat injured refugees. Commander Taemin, we're detecting several ships in your fleet with life support, problems and wounded people aboard. May we send medical teams to help? The idea of human soldiers coming aboard Vellani ships should have been terrifying. But after watching the Iron Resolve risk everything to protect them, Taemin no longer feared these strange allies. Yes, please. We have many people who need help. Our medical supplies ran out weeks ago. What happened next amazed the Vellani refugees. The fearsome human warship that had just destroyed an entire enemy fleet opened its docking bays to release small transport ships filled with doctors, engineers, and supplies. These were the same humans who had wielded weapons that could crack moons, now coming aboard alien vessels with medical equipment and food. Yoonji led the first medical team onto a damaged Vellani transport ship. The aliens inside moved carefully away from her, still unsure about having humans among them. But when she knelt beside a wounded Vellani child and began treating his injuries with gentle skill, their fears began to fade. The bone is broken, but it will heal well with proper care, she explained to the child's parents through her translator. He'll be running around again in a few weeks. The child looked up at the human doctor with curious eyes. Are you really from a death world? He asked, in the innocent way children do. Yoonji smiled softly. Yes, little one. Our world is harsh and dangerous, but that's why we're so good at protecting people who live on gentle worlds like yours. Throughout the refugee fleet, similar scenes played out as human rescue teams worked alongside Vellani civilians. Engineers from the Iron Resolve repaired damaged life support systems. Supply officers distributed food and medicine. Marines who had trained for combat instead helped move injured people and carry supplies. Commander Dongwook coordinated the rescue efforts from the Iron Resolve's bridge, his tactical screens now showing medical status reports instead of weapon targets. Admiral, we have teams on 37 refugee vessels. Casualties are lighter than expected, mostly from malnutrition and system failures. Admiral Haewon nodded, watching the reports come in. What about the Krex prisoner? War leader Gorthak is in Detention Bay 3. Medical team says he'll recover from his injuries. He's been asking to speak with you. Haewon considered this. The Krex commander had been responsible for hunting these refugees for years, probably killing millions of innocent beings. But he had also sent out a warning that might prevent other Krex fleets from attacking defenseless civilians. I'll see him in an hour. What's the status of his message to the Krex Dominion? Captain Wu Jin looked up from his communication station. It went out on all Krex military frequencies. We're already intercepting responses. Most of their commanders are discussing whether to believe it. Meanwhile, in the detention bay, Gorthak sat quietly in his cell, trying to understand what had happened to his fleet and his entire understanding of warfare. The human prison was clean and comfortable, with proper food and medical care. His guards were polite but watchful. It was nothing like the brutal treatment prisoners received in Krex space. When Admiral Haewon arrived to speak with him, Gorthak stood respectfully. Even in defeat, he could recognize a superior warrior. Admiral Haewon, he said formally. I have a question that troubles me. Go ahead. Why did you fight so hard for people you had never met? The Villani are nothing to you. You could have let us finish our hunt and avoided any conflict. HFY looked at the alien commander for a long moment. War leader, how many worlds has your people destroyed? How many innocent beings have died because of orders you carried out? Gorthak's expression grew darker. Many. It is the way of strength. The weak serve or die. That's where you're wrong, HFY said firmly. True strength isn't about destroying the weak, it's about protecting them. Any fool with enough weapons can kill defenseless people. It takes real strength to stand between predators and their prey. But what do you gain from it? There's no profit in protecting strangers. HFY smiled, though there was sadness in it. We gain the knowledge that when we sleep tonight, innocent people are alive because of what we did today. For humans, that's worth more than all the wealth in the galaxy. Gorthak was quiet for a long time, processing this alien concept. Your people are very strange, Admiral. But I begin to understand why the galaxy fears you. The galaxy doesn't need to fear us, HFY replied. But those who prey on the innocent should be afraid, because wherever they go, whatever they do, humans will be there to stop them. Back on the refugee ships, word of the conversation was spreading through carefully translated reports. The Villani began to understand that they had not just been saved by powerful warriors, but by people who genuinely cared about protecting others. Taemin found himself talking with Captain Minho, the human tactical officer who had orchestrated the destruction of the Krex fleet. Instead of a cold killer, he discovered a thoughtful man who studied warfare not for conquest, but to better defend peaceful people. Captain Minho, how did you learn to fight like that? Your battle tactics were like nothing we've ever seen. Minho looked uncomfortable with the praise. We study war so that people like you never have to. Every strategy we develop, every weapon we build, it's all designed around one goal: protecting those who can't protect themselves. But the destruction, the power you used, was necessary to stop people who had been murdering innocents for years, Minho said firmly. We don't enjoy violence, Commander Taemin, but we're very good at it when good people are in danger. As the rescue operations continued, a new understanding began to grow between the two species. The Villani learned that humans were not monsters, but guardians shaped by a harsh world that had taught them to value and defend life. The humans learned about a gentle people whose greatest crime had been being unable to defend themselves against those who saw kindness as weakness. Dr. So Young worked with Jihai to begin a proper cultural exchange, sharing information about both their peoples. What they discovered was that despite their different worlds, both species valued family, community, and the protection of innocent life. Your people and mine are not so different, So Young told her new alien friend. We both want to live in peace and take care of those we love. We just learned different ways to make that possible. The rescue operations took 3 days to complete. When they were finished, the refugee fleet was healthy, supplied, and ready to continue their journey to safety. But now they would not be traveling alone. 6 months after the battle that changed everything, Commander Taemin stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, a joint human-Villani vessel that had become the symbol of their new alliance. Through the viewports, he could see the construction of New Haven Station, a massive space facility where refugees from across the galaxy could find safety and new homes. The station was built with Villani knowledge of peaceful technologies and human expertise in making things that could survive attacks from hostile forces. It was beautiful and welcoming, but also protected by weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. The message was clear to everyone in the galaxy. This place was safe for those who needed help, and death for those who would harm innocents. Commander, we're receiving another distress call, reported Jihai, who now served as the ship's communication officer. She had learned human languages and tactical procedures, becoming one of the first Villani to serve aboard a human warship. Taemin looked at the signal analysis. This time the call came from a species called the Mordani, who were being hunted by Krex forces in a distant sector, but now the response would be very different from his panicked message 6 months ago. Signal the fleet, he ordered. All ships prepare for rescue operations. The fleet was an amazing sight that would have been impossible before humans and Villani began working together. 5 human warships provided the military power, while 10 Villani support vessels carried medical supplies, food, and equipment for helping refugees. It was a force designed not for conquest, but for salvation. Admiral Haywan's voice came over the communication system from the Iron Resolve, which served as the fleet's flagship. All ships, this is Admiral Haywan. We have civilians under attack. 3 systems from here. Standard rescue protocol is in effect. Remember, our job is to save lives and stop the people who threaten them. The joint fleet moved through space with the practiced efficiency of people who had done this many times before. In the 6 months since the first battle, they had rescued 17 different species from various threats. The Human-Villani alliance had become known throughout the galaxy as the force that answered distress calls and made the predators sorry they ever left their homeworlds. On New Haven Station, Dr. So Young worked in her laboratory with alien scientists from a dozen different species. Together, they were developing new technologies that combined the best ideas from peaceful civilizations with human engineering that could survive in a dangerous universe. Dr. So Young, the new shield generators are ready for testing, announced her assistant, a young Selthari engineer whose people had been saved from slave raiders 2 months earlier. The design uses Villani harmonic resonance with human power. Systems. It should be 3 times stronger than anything we've built before. So Young smiled as she reviewed the test data. Excellent work, Kelvar. With shields like these, we can protect even larger refugee fleets. The laboratory was a symbol of how much had changed. Species that had never worked together before were now combining their knowledge to create things none of them could have built alone. Peaceful races provided wisdom and creativity, while human experience with warfare ensured everything could survive real combat. In another part of the station, Chief Medical Officer Yunji ran the largest refugee medical center in the galaxy. Her staff included healers from 20 different species, all working together to help people who had lost everything except hope. Doctor, the new patients from the Themic convoy are stable, reported her deputy, a Villani medic who had learned human surgical techniques. The Krex weapons did serious damage, but everyone will recover. Yunji nodded, checking the patient reports. Good work. Make sure their families know they're safe now. And prepare the psychological support teams. Being hunted for months leaves deep wounds that medicine can't heal. The medical center had become famous throughout the galaxy, not just for its advanced treatment, but for the way staff from so many different worlds worked together. Patients often healed faster when they saw that former enemies could become friends and allies. On the military side of the station, Commander Dong-wook worked with officers from dozens of species to coordinate the Alliance's growing fleet. What had started as one human ship protecting Villani refugees had grown into a multi-species force that could respond to threats across an entire galactic sector. Sir, we have confirmation that the Krex Dominion is withdrawing from the outer rim territories, reported Captain Minho, who now commanded his own ship in the Alliance fleet. Their military command doesn't want to risk encounters with our forces. Dong-wook smiled grimly. The Krex had learned the hard way that hunting refugees was no longer a safe activity. Every time they attacked innocent civilians, Alliance ships appeared to make them regret it. Many Krex commanders had decided it was easier to find other prey than face human-designed weapons operated by people who took protecting others very personally. What about the other predator species? Similar pattern, sir. The Vex Consortium stopped taking slaves after we destroyed 3 of their raiding fleets. The Nightfall Empire is negotiating a peace treaty rather than risk open war with us. Word is spreading that attacking civilians brings the humans running, and nobody wants that. The success was beyond anything Timon had dreamed of when he first sent his desperate message into space. The galaxy was becoming safer for peaceful species, not through conquest or threats, but because someone was finally standing up to the bullies and predators. But the most important changes were happening on a personal level. In the station's cultural center, human children played with Villani young ones, learning each other's games and stories. Teachers from both species worked together to educate the next generation about cooperation and understanding. Pilot Sujin, now commander of a fast patrol ship, often brought her vessel to New Haven Station. She enjoyed watching the cultural exchange between different species, especially the way children seem to learn friendship faster than adults. "It's amazing how quickly they adapt," she told Taemin during one of their regular meetings. "Human kids are teaching Vellani children human games, and Vellani young ones are showing human children how to sing their traditional songs." Taemin nodded, watching his own daughter play with human and alien friends. She doesn't remember being afraid of humans. To her, humans are the people who saved us and became our friends. I think her generation will build something even better than what we've started. The communication center of New Haven Station buzzed with constant activity as distress calls arrived from across the galaxy. But now these calls were answered not by one desperate species hoping for help, but by a well-organized alliance ready to provide salvation and protection. Lieutenant Hyun-soo monitored the long-range communications, watching for patterns that might indicate new threats or species in need of help. "Commander Taemin, we're getting reports of unusual activity in the Kepler sector. Looks like someone called the Drath Collective is expanding aggressively." "Any civilian populations at risk?" Taemin asked. "Several, sir. 3 peaceful species in that area, all showing signs of increased fear in their diplomatic communications." Taemin nodded and began preparing deployment orders. 6 months ago, he would have hoped someone else would handle the problem. Now, he was part of the someone who handled problems. "Signal Admiral Haewon. Looks like we have work to do." The message went out across the Alliance fleet, and ships began preparing for another rescue mission. It had become routine but never casual. Every call for help was answered. Every innocent life was worth protecting. Every predator species learned that the galaxy had changed. War leader Gorthak, now living on New Haven Station as a prisoner-turned-advisor, watched the preparations with fascination. His perspective on strength and weakness had changed completely during his months among humans and their allies. "Admiral Haewon," he said during one of their regular conversations, "my people always believed that the strong should rule the weak. But watching your alliance, I see something different. The strong protect the weak and in doing so become even stronger." Haewon smiled. "Gorthak, you're learning what we've always known. Real strength isn't about being the biggest predator. It's about making sure the predators can't hurt anyone else." As the Alliance fleet prepared to leave New Haven Station for their next mission, Taemin reflected on how much had changed since that desperate day when he sent a mistaken distress call to what he thought were peaceful farmers. The humans had turned out to be Deathworlders just as he had feared, but they were Deathworlders who used their terrible power to protect and defend rather than conquer and destroy. They had become the galaxy's guardians, and in doing so, had made the universe a safer place for everyone who wanted to live in peace. The Sire. Iron Resolve and its escort ships moved away from the station, carrying hope to people who thought they had none left. Behind them, New Haven Station continued its work of healing refugees and building understanding between species. The galaxy was learning a new lesson about power and protection. The age of predator species dominating through fear was ending, replaced by something better, an age where calling for help brought salvation instead of more suffering. And somewhere among the stars, other desperate people were sending out distress calls, knowing now